What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the channel and the first episode in this series of videos that I plan on doing. And I think these are pretty much going to be different than the other episode I did on How Fast Is It Really, which is going to be a series that I'm doing on how fast modern day cars are compared to the history. But I think that this series, as far as performance to cost, on what something costs versus the performance it yields, will be better done as a live video. So this series and these videos will be done in live videos, like I just said, as everybody's joining in. The other series, How Fast Is It Really, is going to be vlog style versus these videos that are going to be on performance to cost are going to be live interactive videos. So I'm going to get right into it because there seems to be a lot, and I do mean a lot of drama going on in the YouTube world right now between Corvettes and Mustangs. And there's always been a Mustang Corvette war because Ford doesn't really make an attainable car to race a ZR1 or a Z06. There's not really a car that Ford makes other than the Ford GT, and you have to get invited. You need a special invite to buy that car, and it's also ridiculous. It's like $250,000. Now, if you've got that kind of cash to blow, there isn't a Corvette in the world that's a better buy than a Ford GT. Changed my mind. I think if you could go into any Ford dealership and order a Ford GT for $150,000 or $160,000, I think the Ford GT is twice the car the Corvette is when it comes to performance. So this is a series that I've been wanting to do for quite some time on cost to performance ratio on different vehicles and stuff like that. And I feel like the ZR1 and the GT500 is a very what's up, guys? I just noticed the comments. I wasn't paying attention. I was in my own world. What's up, Dom, Fishstick, CNC, Orange Crush, Enrique? What's going on, man? Oh, I got another Warzone stream coming on tonight. Don't worry. So getting right down to it, what is a better car between, what's a better performance to value or performance to cost? And this is not really opinions, although opinions are welcomed, and I'm going to put my own 2 cents in opinion on there. But the reality is people like to know facts too. So when we sit here and think about facts and we think about performance to cost, which one of these two cars is better? Now, they are definitely aimed at different markets. However, the GT500 is not a drag car. Neither is the ZR1. I've been saying it since I had my red eye. The GT500 is not a drag strip driven car, although it does perform pretty damn good for a car that's not drag strip driven. Now, with that being said, the GT500 is also a road course monster. It's very good in the turns. It's not as good as the GT350. The only reason why it's faster is because it makes more power. I feel the GT350, just off of specs on a paper and me driving both these cars, that the GT350 in its own class is better suited for a road course than the GT500. And if the GT350 had a Pro Charger or twin turbo setup that was making the exact same power, it would handle better. It's more driven for handling and lighter. With that aside, the GT500 is a phenomenal machine on a road course. It just is. It really is a track beast. Now, when we sit here and compare the two, the ZR1 is definitely faster in a road course, but it's also 400 or 500 pounds lighter. A ZR1 weighs like 3,700 pounds. The GT500 weighs closer to 4,150. So we're looking at about 400, 450 pounds weight advantage. That alone is the reason why the ZR1 is faster. Now, the balance and the aero of the ZR1 is definitely a little bit better than the GT500. It's more balanced, and it also has a little bit better aerodynamics with the splitter, the canards in the front, and the big, huge spoiler in the back. Now, if you've got a GT500 in a track pack, the GT500 is really good. It's really close. And I think that there's more to it than just one thing. What's going on, Dylan? I thought I saw you across the street outside a few minutes ago. But if we're going to sit here and compare the whole package, it's got to be more than just a drag strip. It's got to be more than a road course. It has to be more than just those things. It has to be the total package. So let's sit down and really sit here and analyze the total deal between both cars. You're not going to find a brand new ZR1 anymore, I don't think, at least from the C7. But when you did find one, you're looking at about $130,000, $140,000. Now that they're going used, you're still probably going to be spending $100,000 to $120,000. With the GT500, I know there's crazy markups, but you can go see Matt Beaver over at Whitmoyer, and you can 100% get a GT500 for MSRP. It might take a few months to get one in, but you can. I also legitimately know there is at least a handful, half a dozen GT500s in the country that are less than $75,000. Of course, this is not with the track pack. With the track pack, you're looking closer to $100,000 at MSRP or just above. So let's sit here and analyze the GT500 versus the ZR1. The GT500, if you get it at MSRP, even a slight markup at 80 grand, is about $50,000 less than the ZR1. So you can take the GT500 and you can, for $50,000, that is in savings. And because the fact that the track pack GT500 is almost impossible to get, you can buy the wheels for $20,000. So now you got the wheels, you can get the spoiler, it's like $4,000 or $5,000. So now you're $25,000 in, and you have the track pack and the GT500. There's a couple other differences, but I got a GT350, and I know the differences between the 350 and the R and the track pack and the 500. So you're saving 50 grand over the ZR1. You can blow 25 to get the track pack if you wanted, or if you can find one for 100K, then you're still 30,000 plus below the ZR1. The GT500 only needs a pulley, a tune, an intake, an E85, and possibly injectors. So you're looking at about $5,000 to make 900 wheel, okay? Very easy to do. Then you got to cut some weight though on the GT500. The GT500 needs weight cut. So we're going to think about it. People can say this is heavily modded, but I don't think a pulley and a tune is heavily modded at all. That's literally a bolt-on tune and intake to make 900 wheel plus injectors or whatever. That's very moderate work. I can swap a pulley on a GT500 and do injectors. If it's the old style blower snout, you can change the pulley in like 10 fucking minutes, and you can change the injectors in 20. And you can flash the tune in 10 minutes. Put it on a dyno in an hour. You're talking like 30 minutes labor and put it on a dyno and you're making 900 wheel. Very, very easy to do. Then if you really dive into what else would be needed, I say a lightweight battery from Anti-Gravity, who's also sponsored me, cut 30 pounds out of the nose of the GT500, because that's what's killing the GT500 is all that weight up front for the coolers and stuff. Get a lightweight battery in there, shave that 30 pounds up front, which is only going to cost $500. Then you can get yourself a nice set of rotors up front, carbon ceramic. I think the track pack does already have them, which means the front end's even lighter, which is why you have to go over the track pack GT500. It's lighter. But if you do your homework, put a lightweight drive shaft on, carbon fiber, you can get the GT500 down about 100, 150 pounds. With that and the bolt-ons that I just told you about, you're no more. In a track pack, you'd be probably into the car for $7,000 in mods. If you bought a GT500, you're in 7,000 mods, but you'd have to get the wheels and the spoiler and stuff like that, which would cost you extra. You really don't need the spoiler because that's going to add drag unless you're going to a road course. But you want the carbon fiber wheels. They're light. So with the fact of that being said, you'd be $33,000 into a GT500. You'd be about $7,000 into a track pack, which pretty much puts you at the same price, about $105,000. So I guess at the end of the day, we're comparing a $105,000 GT500 versus a $130,000, $140,000 ZR1. Now, even if you got the ZR1 used, okay, even if you got one used for 120, I guarantee you're not going to find one for less than 110, 120. But let's just say you get one for 120. You're still $15,000 less on the GT500, and I'm not hating on the ZR1 at all. We're going to get to the ZR1 specs in a minute, but realistically, there is no way in hell that a stock ZR1 is going to hang with a pulley and tuned E85 GT500. So if you're really looking at performance to cost, the GT500 is the better car. On a drag strip, a highway roll, doesn't matter if you're doing a 0 to 60, doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing straight line speed, whether it's roll or drag strip, the Shelby's going to win every single time, mod for mod. That's just the reality of it, because the car is so much less money. You can go right into the mods. Now, if we're talking stock for stock, then the GT500 is a little bit slower, only because of weight. Really, the weight is what's killing it. I really wanted to see the GT500 lighter. Now, if you want to talk about stock power output, you really only have to do a lightweight battery, carbon fiber wheels, and a rear seat delete, and a drive shaft, carbon fiber drive shaft. That right there is 50 pounds, 100 pounds. That's 175 pounds. You can get the GT500 down to about 3,900 and change, and then it's going to be relatively a close race. Let's not forget the transmission in the GT500 is better than the ZR1. Ask me how I know. My friend Mike let me drive his ZR1. Great car, loved it, a lot of fun. Truly a gem of a vehicle, really is. But the transmission's not on par with the GT500. It's just not. Even Mike will tell you that. It's very lackluster shifting from any aspect. Doesn't matter if you're paddle shifting or auto shifting. The transmission in that car is not much better than a manual, in my honest opinion. It's very laggy, very slow, very buggy. I know that because I also test drove a Z06, and it was the exact same thing. The GT500 has the best automatic transmission that money can buy, with the exception of the Demon or the Red Eye. That's an argument I don't really want to get into, because the GT500 shifts faster, but a torque converter is stronger. Now, this isn't a Hellcat or a Red Eye video. It's a GT500 ZR1 video. So you're spending $50,000 less and you're getting a better transmission. I don't care what anybody says. Reality's reality, and I'm not a Mustang fanboy. I've owned 5 Dodges in the past 2 years. I'm speaking outside perspective, outside the box here. The GT500 has the better transmission. It just does. It's got a way better transmission. In fact, I think the ZR1 has probably got one of the lower or one of the worst transmissions that you can get in a sports car. And out of the ones I've driven, it's just, just the way it is. Like, it's just not a good trans. It really isn't. Now, overall, the ZR1 is going to be probably much higher value. It's going to hold its value a lot better than the GT500. Although I feel the Track Pack GT500 is going to hold value like crazy. I really do. I feel like the GT500 in a Track Pack form with the carbon is going to probably maintain the majority of its value. Now, there's a lot of other aspects. If you're going to take this strictly to a road course and you're going to strictly go driving on a road course all the time, that's all you're doing, road course driving and Sunday driving, and or you're rich, the ZR1 is the way to go. It really is. If you plan on being a normal guy and daily driving your car, and when I say daily, I don't mean weekends. Daily means 7 days a week. Daily means you're going to go to New York City. Well, not right now, for God's sakes, not right now. But you're going to go to New York City and you live in Pennsylvania and you got a 4-hour drive. You drive the ZR1 or the Mustang. That's daily driving. A lot of people get that confused with they take their car to work. Daily driving is not taking your car to work when you live 3 miles or 4 miles from your job. That's not daily. Daily means everywhere. Vacations all over. Every time you leave your house, no matter if it's 4 hours, 6 hours, 1 hour, you drive your car. That's daily driving. So if you're going to daily drive your ZR1, that's wonderful. But most guys who have a ZR1, they buy it, drive it on Sundays, go to a road course once a year, and the car sits in the garage because they're afraid to drive it. That's not all owners, but that's the majority of them. So it's a lot of money for a garage queen. It really is. Not saying the GT500 is really much cheaper. I mean, 50 grand's a lot, but it's still an $80,000 car and way too expensive to be a garage queen. In any case, if you plan on going to the drag strip and driving it all the time and roll racing and once in a while going to a road course, the GT500 is definitely the better car for the value, performance to cost. I feel the ZR1 is probably one of the best Corvettes ever made, if not the best one ever made. It's better than the C8, a lot better in my opinion. It looks better. I've even told Mike that. I think it's one of the best cars ever made, the ZR1. So between these two cars, it's really hard to choose depending on what your end of the day goals are. The ZR1 drives significantly stiffer and tighter than the GT500 does. It almost, I guess you could say the ZR1 sort of feels like driving my GT350, but even stiffer and even more tight. because I've driven the ZR1 for a considerable amount of time. I spent like half an hour, 45 minutes that one day driving it. And then previously I drove it for like a half hour. So I've spent some time driving, shifting it, turning some corners in it, and feeling the overall vehicle and how it responds to corners and stuff. And the ZR1 tends to oversteer. The ZR1 is very much oversteering. When you lean into the corners at all, it'll oversteer like crazy if you're not careful, and that rear end will break loose. So it's not a beginner's car. You can't just be a beginner, jump into a ZR1 and start hammering the throttle and turning. That car will roll out on you and you'll crash. So as someone who's experienced that car, it oversteers like crazy, but it drives good. You just have to know when to let off the throttle when you're turning. Got to be very careful with that car because it is very, like I said, very prone to oversteer and very light in the rear end. With the GT500, it tends to understeer. The GT500, very much like the GT350 from the factory, has a little bit of understeer, which will stop you from breaking your rear end loose and going sideways as easily. I feel like you still need a lot of knowledge to drive, or experience, should I say, to drive a GT350 or GT500, but you'll definitely need more experience with a 350 because it's a manual. The GT500 is an auto, so you won't need as much experience driving a GT500 as you would a 350. And granted, that comes from the fact that it's not a manual. So basically, with that being said, if you're a beginner driver or an amateur driver or a moderate driver who's not professional on a road course, or you've never been to a road course, or you've only been a select amount of times and you're not that good at a road course, you're gonna have one hell of an easier time driving the GT500 than you will the ZR1. I'm willing to bet right now that if you put two amateurs in a ZR1 and another in a GT500, the GT500 would win every time. The amateur in the GT500 would beat the amateur in the ZR1. Why is that? Because the GT500 is an easier car to drive, a lot easier car to drive. And without getting into specifics on the cars, like technical data, which makes it really, really hard to understand for a lot of people, the GT500 was engineered to understeer for the average person. It also has a faster transmission, meaning that if you make a mistake, it's going to shift faster and it's going to allow you to make up for a little bit of time. Now, to explain to you guys what time you're going to make up for in shifting, a DCT like the one in the GT500 shifts in about 60 milliseconds, maybe even a little bit faster, because last time I checked, that was the spec Ford went off of, but to be honest, it might actually be 40 or 50. But let's just say 50 milliseconds to be safe. The shifting in the red eye is 160 milliseconds, okay? And the red eye shifts like a monster. And the ZR1 is lackluster, to say the least. In fact, the ZR1 shifts much slower than the red eye does. So I'm willing to bet the ZR1 shifts in about 300 milliseconds. 250 to 300 is where it probably is. I wouldn't even doubt it if it was 400 or 500, but we'll just say 300. Just so you guys know, 0.300 milliseconds or 300 milliseconds is a third of a second. So let's say the GT500 has to shift 3 times in one turn. It has to downshift twice and then upshift once when you're coming through the turn. And then it has to shift again. So you got 4 shifts actually. Depending on the turn, you might have 4 shifts. 4 times 5 is 200 milliseconds. 4 times 300 is 1200. So you got 1.2 seconds versus a quarter of a second. That means every single corner that you go into with the GT500 and the ZR1, the GT500 is shaving off an entire second. Let that sink in. Every single time you go into a corner, you're going to shave off half a second or a second, depending on the amount of shifts. That's just the difference in the transmission between the ZR1 and the GT500. So if you could shave a little bit of weight out of the GT500, would say the track pack and a lightweight battery, a lightweight drive shaft, you could still technically enter the stock class of track cars. And if you went up against a ZR1 with a carbon fiber drive shaft and a battery installed and a seat delete in a track pack GT500, which I think already comes with a seat delete, you're going to be doing really well, especially if you know how to drive your car. So that's what comes to mind is we're talking performance to cost. It's 50 grand less And with very few things done, it can outrun a ZR1. Now, I could be wrong when I say this, but I'm not 100% sure. I thought I heard someone a couple of days ago say the GT500 beat the ZR1's track time. I don't know if that's true, but someone had said that had happened. And I don't know. I'm going to have to go check because I'm not going to put that in the video and say that it happened when I'm not sure if it did or not. But I did hear somebody said that the GT500 Track Pack Edition did actually beat the ZR1. Now, if it did, that means from the factory, you've got a car that's better on a road course than the ZR1 for 50 grand less. But I'm a car guy and I like them all. So I just wanted to basically hit you guys with this video and let you know what my thoughts are. You know, there's a lot of racing going on YouTube and a lot of guys are hating on the GT500. And I've actually put a lot of negativity towards the GT500 in the past. Even though it wasn't hate, it was just facts. Like, it's not faster than a red eye stock for stock. It's just not. And I'm still going to stand by that. If you take a red eye and line it up with a GT500, both with equal drivers and the exact same tires, I don't want to get into any of that crap where people say stock tires. There is no stock tires on a red eye. They're garbage. So you have to put proper tires on it. But if you take a red eye and a GT500 with equal drivers, put them side by side, and you give the red eye and the GT500, you give them both Mickey Thompson tires so they have the exact same tires, the red eye's faster every time. So no, I'm not biased on the GT500 versus ZR1. It's just facts. I like my GT350. I like the GT500. It's just not as fast in a straight line as the red eye, but it's an amazing accomplishment for Ford. And it, like you said, it's a road course car. And I think the GT500 is a seriously good car. It's a engineering marvel is what it is. They did a great job on the GT500. Like, I'm coming from a bunch of Dodges. I sold my red eye, bought a GT350. And I'm going to tell you guys, Ford really does put a lot of work into these cars as far as the suspension and the balanced chassis. Like, I took my GT350 around a turn tonight. No bullshit. I took it around a turn that my red eye used to body roll at 45 miles an hour. 40 to 45, the red eye would body roll. I'd have to let out. I took that same turn today, about an hour ago, in the GT350, and I took that turn at 65 miles an hour, and I could have pushed the car even further. I know for a fact that the GT350 has way more in it than what I gave it tonight. So I was able to add 20 mile an hour to the same corner that I took in the red eye. Like, they are very balanced cars, and the GT500 has even more power than I have. So at the end of the day, to close out the topic at hand between the ZR1 and the GT350 or GT500, excuse me, it really depends on what you're going for. If you're going to be a driveway queen, garage queen, and only drive it a couple times a month, or you're going to go to the road course only, the ZR1 is a very good buy if you can afford it. If money is not your thing, the ZR1. If you've got, you know, a regular job, or you're an average guy trying to live out your dream driving cars, or you've got decent, good money, but you just don't want to blow that much, the GT500 is the way to go. If you want the car, no matter how much money you have, even if you're rich, doesn't matter. If you want the car that's not going to waste money, that's going to give you the best value for the dollar you're spending, there is absolutely no question that the GT500 is the better car. Who could possibly choose the ZR1 at $140,000? It's not going to give you $50,000 of advantage over the GT500. I mean, like I've already stated, you put $7,000 into the GT500 and you're smoking the ZR1, and you've got $43,000 in the bank. So this video is not about which car is better or being biased. This video in this series is about which car has a better performance to cost, and the ZR1 definitely does not, because it's $50,000 more, and it's only got maybe like a quarter of a second in the quarter mile faster. And I think I heard that it lost a stock-on-stock GT500 for lap times. So it's not a better car for performance. It's just not. It's $50,000 more. So I wanted to put this out there because of all the heat between these two cars over the last couple of weeks. Also, Stang Mode and Iconic GT500. And there's also another guy, Tang Stang, who's got a GT500. A ZR1's not going to hang with those cars for the cost. It's just not. You got to do a pulley and a tune. You also got to look at, you know, the cost of modification. Like Street Speed 717, my buddy Mike, he put a lot of money in his ZR1, but he's sponsored. He doesn't pay full price. And I'm not going to get into that, but I'll tell you, if you own a ZR1, a pulley and a tune is going to cost you a lot. Any guy who owns a ZR1 that tries to say that it's not going to cost a lot is fibbing big time, because the PCMs in the ZR1 require decryption. I know this. I spoke to Late Model Racecraft. It costs $5,000 to unlock the PCM in a ZR1. If you don't believe me, call Late Model Racecraft and ask him yourself. $5,000 to unlock the PCM. Legit. It's going to cost you $6,500 just to tune the fucking thing. That's it, just for a tune, $6,500. That's not including injectors, a booster pump, a new fuel pump. That's not including the pulley or the intake or the exhaust or the dyno time. You're talking like $5,000 or $6,000 just so that you can tune it. Do you know what you have to spend to tune a Mustang GT350 or GT500? $400 for the N gauge. That's it. Plug it in and tune it and go. So it's really hard to say that a ZR1 is the better buy when you really have to have money growing out of your ass in order to drive one or mod one. So its performance to value is significantly lower than the GT500. It's very piss poor, to be honest. If I was filthy rich, I still wouldn't buy one because I wouldn't want to waste money. I'd rather just buy two GT500s, buy one in a track pack, buy one regular one, buy a red eye, come back to Dodge. I mean, for the cost of one, I could buy a red eye and a GT500 and mod them both. Just to put that into perspective for you, you can get a ZR1 for 140 grand, or you can get a red eye used for 50 grand and a GT500 for 70, and you're relatively going to have the same amount of money spent, but you're going to have two amazing vehicles for the price of one. Like I said, it's not a hate video. It's just a reality check, and a video to put out the facts for you guys between these two cars. Now, if you've got money, mad money, and you really want to throw it at the ZR1, you know, Mike ZR1 makes 850 or 900 wheel. He could probably squeeze a little more out of it. But you know what that would cost the average person? Well, his 800 wheel horsepower package was $15,000. I know that because I called Late Model Racecraft. So in order to do an E85 conversion and make 900 wheel, you have to do a cam, you have to do a 4-inch intake, you have to do a ported blower, you have to do a throttle body, a full exhaust, no cats, injectors, a booster pump, an unlocked PCM, E85, and a tune. If you guys don't know, that's like $20,000 on a ZR1. So that means that that ZR1 that's making 950 wheel, 900, 950, that guy's got $165,000 in his car. Like, that's straight up facts. Think about that. I mean, to do a cam on a ZR1, you're looking at $3 grand in labor in the camshaft itself. That's $3,000 for just the cam. The throttle body's $500. To unlock the PCM is $5,000. The tuner's over $1,000. The booster pump's like $500. The injectors are $2,000. The intake's like $800, $900. The exhaust piece and components are like $2,000. I mean, by the time you really get into it, you're looking close to $20,000 plus the time on the dyno. So really sit here and think about it. Even if you love Corvettes, you're going to have $165,000 to make 950 wheel. My fucking red eye did that for $4 grand and the car cost me 71. I had 75,000 in my red eye and it made 950 wheel horsepower. Let that sink in. Now, if you're thinking about a GT500, which is what this video is about, it's the same thing. The GT500's MSRP is relatively the same as the red eye. So you're looking, Mike said 3 easy payments of $19,900. God, Mike, that you made my day with that comment. You really did. So when you sit here and think about the GT500, even if, let's just say right now you paid markup on your GT500. Let's say you did. Let's say you paid 95 grand for your GT500. Okay. Well, Stang Mode's only got probably 5 grand. Actually, Stang Mode's a stock. Iconic GT500 only has 5 grand in his car. He told me he's got 4,500 in his car. Okay. So even if he paid 95,000, you're under 100 grand for 950 wheel horsepower. The ZR1 is like 160K. Even if you got it used, and even if you got a deal on parts, say 16 grand in mods, and you got the car for 120, you're still close to 140 versus 100. It's not worth it. It's just not. If you're a diehard Corvette fan, it is. But if you're watching this video and you're wondering between the two, which is the better overall car, GT500. And that's just the facts. I think the Red Eye is a better car than the ZR1 too. In fact, I think any practical car is better than the ZR1 because of the cost. So this is not, me being biased towards the Mustang. I just think that the ZR1 is very expensive track car. It's not meant to be modded, really. I think it's best equipped in a manual and enjoy it spiritedly because the automatic transmission sucks in it. And you're better off driving it and enjoying it with a manual, leaving it in your garage, driving it a couple times a week, and just enjoying the car. That's what it's for. Prestige. Perfect. The most prestigious Corvette ever made. But if we're talking about daily driving, performance to value, performance to cost, which one is faster? It loses all of those because it's way too expensive. It's not practical. And for the very few guys in the country that can afford to buy it and mod it, it is fast. But the GT500 is still faster because anybody can afford a GT500, just throw money at it and you're faster. So at the end of the day, it's kind of a moot point to compare the two. But overall, I still feel the GT500 is the better car based on facts and performance to cost. But I'd love to know what you guys think. This is the end of the actual vlog, but I will stick around to hang out with you guys. So I'm just going to do my outro and then we'll just keep talking and I'll cut it later. So thank you so much, guys, for stopping in, watching the video. Take care. Have a great night. I'll see you guys all in the next upload.